hand, delighted to be your host, privileged to be your host through 3 hours every day. We're here from 7:30 in the morning until 10:30, and I'm joined in studio right now by Carla Quinn. You're very welcome.
Thank you, Ron.
Nice to see you. And Alicia McKevitt.
How are you?
And you're from Autism Mums. And the great qualification that you have for being so is that you've got each a boy with autism. 8-year-old Pascal and 8-year-old Lachlan. And you founded this society, this organisation, Autism Mums, and it started to grow ever so slowly, but by gum, grow it did.
It actually grew quite fast. In all, we started up the Facebook page in April. April. We did our first fundraiser in May, and since then we've grown from having 4 families to over 100 families.
My goodness, in this area?
In this area, yeah.
So we have 100 children in our area with autism, maybe more.
Oh, it would be well more than that. So
isn't that
yeah.
amazing? And it's amazing that it took 2 mums, ordinary but extraordinary mums in our community to get this started, rather than something coming from
well, it happened, it was quite freak actually the way it happened, because I have 4 friends who have autistic children, and Alicia was one of them, and we were sort of on Facebook asking advice and tips from each other, and they would be asking me questions and I would say, well, Alicia has something similar like that, I'll put her in contact with Alicia. So it's my sister who actually said, why don't you just make a Facebook page and you can all offer advice and tips to each other.
Yeah.
So just sitting one night and I said, well, I'll name it Autism Mums.
Yeah.
Because that's what we
it's
were.
It's a great name. It's a brilliant name.
It's just factual, isn't it?
It kind of just, that's what it is. It's a group of mums that has come together to support, other mums in the area. And the thing is, we support families. A lot of services don't kick in until after diagnosis.
And sometimes it's tough to get a diagnosis. It takes a while.
It's a long, long time, and in all you're in limbo.
Yeah.
So our group is open to parents that is actually in the process of diagnosis. So we can start giving those wee bits of advice. We're not experts in autism. We're experts in one person with autism.
Yeah,
so what we do is we'll tell other parents things that was things that was brilliant and things that helped Lachlan, Carla say things that was fantastic for Pascal.
Yeah.
And all those wee bits of advice and those wee tips, we're finding that it's proven to be invaluable to those parents that hasn't got their autism training, they haven't got their early intervention,
Tell me, if you would, Carla, what was the first indication you had that Pascal was autistic, had that kind of autism personality?
Well, Pascal regressed, which meant that Pascal had all his milestones until he was 18 months.
So he grew to 18 months, everything was fine?
Everything was fine, he was eating normally, and he had started saying mama, dada, and eye contact was fantastic, normal play as such. And then it seemed to be overnight we lost Pascal.
Overnight you lost Pascal?
Overnight.
But he hasn't gone from you intellectually completely.
No.
He would communicate with you.
Oh yes, well at that time when it actually happened overnight, all communication stopped.
But he grew back.
And he's still growing.
Yeah.
And it's a lifelong process, and you learn your whole life. But we're just now getting eye contact back, and it's not perfect, and he's 8 now.
But I would also, I don't have great experience other than having taught people with autism, 3 or 4, and I find them an intriguing and magnificent human beings, and it would seem to me that in losing the eye contact, he's looking, as far as he's concerned, at something infinitely more interesting.
Oh, definitely.
All
100%.
the images inside his own head.
Exactly,
and he's enjoying that,
Yeah, totally. He was in his own world for about 4 years.
Yeah.
He did attend special needs school and nurseries because he had no speech, and we were using sign language with him.
Ah, yes.
But once we got that channel opened, the words just kept coming and coming. His first word was banana.
Really? His first word?
After we'd regressed,
Yeah.
he spoke them when he was 5.
And would he have remembered banana from the time when
I
he
would
was
think so.
So that stuck with him?
Yes, it was obviously something within that past of his life, you know, that
That stuck with him.
it stuck with him.
I like a banana. It's just the way,
Lachlan's
maybe.
first was bread.
You know,
Seems to be food orientated, doesn't it?
What is that? Bread, yeah, bread.
Lachlan's
yeah.
was bread.
Bread. So what was yours?
Orientated.
Did you have a similar progress, first of all, and then regression?
No, Lachlan's was quite different from Lachlan. Was a few months old. He's the third child in the family.
Yes.
So with the other two, you'd notice that, do you know when they're wee babies and you're singing to them on your knee, there was that interaction, that looking back at you, the giggling, the laughing. There was never none of that. And you would have been playing with Lachlan, and the best way you could ever describe it was the lights was on and nobody was at home. You were looking into these wee eyes and they were completely empty. There was nothing coming back at all.
Yeah. But for a long part of that looking into the eyes, it wouldn't have quite dawned on you.
You
that
knew
he
there was something. I didn't know he was autistic, but you knew there was something. You knew there was something very different with Lachlan to his older brother and sister.
Yes.
You knew the developmental stages just weren't hitting. He wasn't hitting his 10 words by 12 months, you know, or 5 words by 12 months. You know, the mama, dada, anything like that. He wasn't doing nothing like that. There was absolutely... I called the health visitor, worried about it, and the health visitor put it down to, he's a third child, you're a busy mommy. But it was actually quite the opposite of that. He has really severe asthma as well. So he would have been in the hospital like for the best part of 2 to 3 weeks per month.
Yeah.
So he was constantly getting that one-to-one attention, that one-to-one interaction, and there was still nothing coming back, you know.
How soon did the folk who are in the hospital and in the doctor and in the health visitor regime, how soon in your case, how early did they pick up on it? Like you were being told for a little while, it's okay, it's just the third child, blah, blah.
Yeah, well, I was told that was about 12 months. So I battled with myself about when Lachlan was 16 months old. I called the health visitor again to say, I'm actually really worried about this boy. By then, he had an awful lot of aggression. He was very violent. And most of that, I'm sure, is down to his lack of communication. He couldn't tell us what he needed. He couldn't say what he wanted.
frustration.
The most simple thing, like his first
But you are
word was
both,
bread.
but if I may say so, you are both making the assumption it is frustration.
Yeah.
Did any one of the health professionals sit you down and say, this is frustration?
No, actually, at that point, the health professional says, actually, you're a good mummy. How could there be anything wrong with your boy? So I sat for another 6 months.
What a nonsense thing to say.
I know, and it eats away at me still, you know, because then whenever I gathered up the courage about 6 months later, and it takes an awful lot of courage for you as a parent to admit, right, things aren't the way they should be. Yes. There is something going on here.
You need immediately emotional and medical arms around you, so to speak, you know.
When you don't get that, when you have someone saying, sure, how could there be, you're a good mommy, and it sort of backs you up and gives you the pat on the back, right, there's not, it's all in my head, it's okay. And it takes you a further 6 months to go, this really isn't right.
And that's 6 months that the diagnosis is pushed further along the chain.
Me and Alicia call it limbo land.
Limbo land. You don't want limbo land.
No.
Because you can deal with anything that you've been given.
Oh, totally.
Some way.
You're constantly on Google all the time, you know, and we find that a lot with our mummies coming on board who are waiting for diagnosis as well. And sometimes then their head runs away with them. And you know.
Personally now with Lachlan, I heard the word autism before, but did not have one clue about what it was or how it would affect him. And then you Google things, which sometimes is the worst possible thing, because generally with Google, you get the worst possible cases.
Totally.
And you're sitting devastated, there's no future, there's no hope.
Well,
and it's actually quite the opposite.
It is quite the opposite. I taught 2 boys over in the Southern Regional College, and I'm standing after one of them was Anthony Bannon, and I greet you this morning, Anthony, wherever you are in the world. But I mean, Anthony, I'm standing 2 years ago, I taught him 15 years ago, and I'm in the supermarket, and I'm hailed. He calls to me. He hadn't seen me in 5 years. He says, I've got my degree.
Oh, that's brilliant.
He had got his degree.
Fantastic.
And I remember when I was asked by Anthony and by another child to tell the class he was autistic, and he said, I'll take today off. I'll take tomorrow off. Do it tomorrow, and then come back and tell me. So I was shook on it, and he took the day off, and I told the class. I had to sit him down the next day, we talked, and this is what the class said. And from that moment on, everything was great. But the extraordinary thing was that he became my greatest defender, because young people in class can go buck mad, but he would sit there, swing round, stop it! Leave Rowan alone. Stop it and listen. Boy, oh dear, I tell you, I had some friend, and the other thing that I discovered too was when we took another boy. He was into teenage years too. He was the son of a millionaire, and we were going to London to take some of the millionaire's arts treasures back. And sure, all the boy wanted to do was to see around London and to see the red light districts, and to see the Soho, and to see the Broadway and all of these kind of things that you have in there. But they desperately reaching out in curiosity all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
And the things our boys can come out with, like, you know, my other two kids, they would have just been thinking about normal things. Lachlan will come up with the most obscure things in the middle of the night, like, Mum, do you know when you flush the toilet?
Yeah.
And the poo goes away?
Yeah.
Where eventually does it end
Where
up?
does it end up?
And you're like, and then he started getting on to me about filtration systems and the possibility that he could possibly drink that same water again, because
this was coming from your 8-year-old.
Last year when he was 7. So, you know, their wee minds are constantly on the go. It's absolutely fantastic. And the fact he can communicate that with me is unreal.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Pascal.
Pascal, he would know every street in New York. Never been to America.
He would know every
He knows
street.
all the streets in New York. And
At 8 years of age?
At 8, yeah. You know, so even though he's never been there, he's never had a map in his hand, but he knows, they seem to need to study these things and get in depth in them, you know, whereas we would just say, well, shall we go to the Statue of Liberty today? He would nearly need to know the coordinates of it, you know.
Absolutely. No, there's another lad, I met him recently, and he was in here. And, you bring your boys in here, by the way, and let them experience in here.
They'd love that.
Oh, they would really love that, yeah.
We'll do that
They would be interviewing you, Rowan.
well, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Brilliant.
Let's do it. But the other boy, after 6 months after he'd been in, I'm standing in the station in Dublin, heading home, and I'd grown the beard since and I don't know where, looking at me, he's looking. And his dad's standing with him. The dad was, he wants to talk to you. See how when you're talking, you're chatting, and it's all. There are many blessings with it, aren't there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. You know, the Pascal has his own world, and it's only when you're allowed into it when he says so.
Yeah.
You know, like, he does have his friends, but they don't mean as much to them, as much to him as, you know, Alicia would mean to me, or my friends would mean to me.
Yeah.
But he likes to be beside them.
Yeah.
He likes to, you know, we've set up a new group, and they've all made loads of friends, and
So are the children involved in the group as well?
Oh yes.
Very much so. So autism mums means autism mums and kids.
We Autism Mums is the Facebook page. It's a private page.
Yeah.
And there's I actually added another person today. There's 106 mums and dads on it. You know, so that is for the private page for us, firing advice and tips together. Nobody else can see that. We also have a public page where our supporters can follow us, and they can see what we're up to and how we're spending their money, you know.
And the support we've had from local people and local businesses has been phenomenal, and we can't thank the people of Newry and the surrounding areas enough.
I'm astounded at the number of folk who have autism, you know. That's a big number of people that you mentioned to me earlier.
We have also, we've started up our Awesome Club,
SOME.
And that is on every Friday night up in Newry Bosco from 4 to 7.
Oh,
it's amazing. You go into the club, the main gym hall, there's be all different games and stuff laid out for the kids. There is an arts and crafts room. There's a relaxation story room, sort of. And if
my Pascal's taking charge of it, so
story room, DVD room, and then there's also like fuseball tables and stuff like that in another room for the teenager kind of guys. So the main purpose of this is to promote that social interaction between the kids, because that's one of the major stumbling blocks for our kids, is that they don't have that social peer group. Once they hit the teenage years, then they regress and don't come out.
But you see, it strikes me they're being looked after now magnificently because you have your hands on the reins.
Yeah.
You are the drivers of autism mums. Now, they will grow up and you will grow older to a point of disappearing. That's a fear. What's going to happen ultimately?
Well,
And are there systems existing within the health service to take over the caring role that you have now?
Well, until they're 19, they can avail of the education,
Yeah.
you know, the full-time education. But it's then, once they come 19,
What happens?
there's different things, you know, like they could have work experience, say, in Duns, which Duns have, taken a few of them on. And then if they're good enough, they'll stay on in their employment.
Yeah.
But
For the children that doesn't suit, there's daycare, and that may only be 1 day a week. And the major thing with children with autism is it's structure and routine every step of the way. So you're taking away a full-time education where they're at school 5 days a week for so many hours per day, and you're replacing that with 1 day with a couple of hours.
Yeah.
So naturally that child goes, I don't like this, I've had enough, I'm not doing it, I'm staying in my room, I'm going nowhere. Because you take away all that structure, all that routine, and everything that makes our kids flourish. You're taking that away in one swoop with the, do you know what I mean, with the flash of an age kind of a thing, you know, that kind of way.
I just sense in listening to the pair of you that you're at the start, necessarily at the start of something very, very big. Because
We kinda think so.
society at the moment has not equipped itself to deal with the issue of autism, the whole spectrum, at all. You know, as you say, 19, they get a job in Duns, or they go into a day centre or whatever. But your day centres are very often a thing of the far and distant past,
totally.
where you need to get people integrated in the community.
And that's what we're all about.
That I'm not so lazy that I don't take the trouble to understand them a bit better.
That's what it's all
and
about.
that I have got
understanding.
that society who aren't autistic, that we who are not autistic need to take the trouble to get to know those who are. And that way we all grow as a community.
In a perfect world, that would just be amazing. But that's what we're all about as well, Rowan, is awareness.
Yeah.
We're trying to spread awareness, which I think we've done a good job over the last 8 months.
We're doing pretty brilliant
Well,
at it
your
now,
other
what's it?
awareness, I said, now, his name is Owen. His name is, I'm telling you this just off the top of my head, and but I mean, you must contact him. Owen Ryan. He's the editor of Nationwide on RTE. Because the thought's coming to me, what you're doing here needs doing in Portlaoise, needs doing in Galway, needs doing in Sligo. So out of Newry could come
That would be
a
fun,
wider,
wouldn't it?
nationwide, island-wide.
Well, that's what
thing.
I sometimes think at night, how big is this going to go, you know, and we
It's
have...
grown so big in such a short space of time, you
Yeah.
know, and we're kind of rolling with it. The more the parents want and the more the kids want, the more we're running with it, right?
And we're working as well with social services with this, and we're getting proper training from the Community Confederation
Yes.
group, which we're a recognised part of
We're also
now.
working with the SELB as well.
SELB and the council, they've all recognised us now as a...
But you're so... At the heart of all of this are the children.
Oh,
Totally.
yeah.
And these are children who live in their own world very, very often, constantly. And unless we take the trouble, you as parents, and you're doing it, but the kind of health service people, surely to goodness, need to develop the skill, develop the interest in, develop the whole approach that will back you up and underpin what you're doing.
At the end of the day, it all comes down to funding, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
we have
Are
met...
you aware of the National Autistic Society?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You're aware of them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They helped me at the
Like,
beginning as
they're
well.
good
They were very
people,
good.
yeah.
We have met the most fantastic, the most driven people within the health service, within
Oh,
social
totally.
services,
Yeah.
and who do their job as best as they can and have their heart and soul completely in it. But at the end of the day, as it goes with any health service, you're driven by cost, you're
Well, the
driven by
budgets
funding.
are coming out now.
You know,
It's appalling what's going on.
and that's the
altogether.
thing that any government should stand up and listen to. If you put the funding in while they're so young, whilst they're developing, whilst they're like wee sponges taking everything in,
Yeah.
you're going to have an army of a workforce out there able to keep down full-time
Yeah.
jobs,
Yeah.
able to keep their own homes. The way the system is at the minute, the system isn't equipping our children to have a future like that. It's equipping them for...
Yeah. Well,
institutionalized.
yeah, it's not going to happen. That's not on.
You know,
your children are too
it's not going to
bright.
happen with ours, that's
No.
for sure.
Your
because
children are too bright. Autistic children are too bright for that to happen to them. You know.
But that's what's been going on for years. And at the end of the day, if the government sticks the money in now and puts the development in, gets all the structures in place now, at the end of the day, they're going to have a workforce that can go out, work, keep themselves. If they don't do that, they're going to have...
funding them forever.
They're going to be funding them, DLA,
Shelter
housing
accommodation.
benefits,
Oh, no,
all that stuff for the
roar
rest of their
against
lives, you know.
And what about now? What about the support from the politics with the big P, the politicians at Westminster trying to change the legislation, trying to stand up for you, you know?
Well, I'll just put it to you like this, Ron. In Westminster there was a meeting on anyway in Westminster one day, and it was for special needs education, and there was 4 members of Parliament at it.
Yeah.
We were so disappointed. You know, we need the likes of these people to back us up.
We do, sure.
But then they don't understand it, and maybe they don't want to unless it comes to their own door.
Yeah.
But our local councillors have been a fabulous support to us.
Yeah, but very often, you see, they're great, but they have no power. You need the people in Westminster to bang the drum and make it happen, you know.
That's it.
And now you have this new tide of cutbacks coming. So you're not even at the dinner plate, never mind been driven back from it. You haven't got up to that level.
Not yet.
But you will. You will.
We will.
Shall we talk about bringing a couple of the folk in and say 1 or 2 someday, and we'll...
Definitely.
That'd be brilliant.
And
Can't wait to do that.
We'll do that, and we'll do something really, really good.
That'd be fab. We also have a junior committee, and they are keeping us right, and they're keeping
running,
us...
Yeah,
Yep.
why wouldn't they?
So even some of the junior committee will come in with some of the kids as well. Would be fabulous, because at the end of the day, that's the future. We're going to get old. We're going to not be able to do this in so many years and whatever. But we want the kids to take up the mantle, the members of our group, and they can make the decisions. They can choose the way forward.
What you've done for me here today, quite apart from autism, you have underpinned for me the sheer delight and goodness of motherhood, because it's shining out of the pair of you.
Oh, thanks. We're very determined women.
No, but it really is, and well done. And we'll not lose sight. Owen Ryan, editor, Nationwide, RTE Cork.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rowan. Thank you.
Thank you, Rowan. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And you're doing great, great things, Andrew.